For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Laubert. This is Derek Evans. It's yet another glorious day in America's new golden age, and as always, we've got a lot going on.
That's right, guys. We have an awesome show lined up for you guys today. If you can see, I'm trying something new with my microphone, so please let me know if it sucks or if it's working. That's fine. I appreciate it either way. We have an awesome show lined up for you guys today. As always, like, share, subscribe, all those good things. If you're watching live, hop in the comments. I'll read all of the comments, and I'll do my best to give you guys a shout-out, kind of like this. We've got Thaddeus over here in the X chat, and we've already got Dan Dreyer over here in the Rumble chat. And like I said, we've got an awesome show lined up for you guys here today.
And before we get started, do we have any breaking news I need to get to before we actually dive in?
You talking about John Thune,
or anything,
or David Hogg,
anything else? Anything?
Well, David Hogg has been. They've started the process of removing David Hogg as the vice chair of the Democrat Party. For why? What's the reason, you're wondering? Because he's a white male. That's literally the reason that this has happened, because he's a white male. I'm going to be curious now that he's being removed for being a white male, if he's still going to support the DEI nonsense moving forward or not.
Well, see, I think that is the reason technically, but I think that's just because when they elected him, they assumed he was transgender. And now they can't meet their little qualifications, which I didn't know this. So I did see his interview with Bill Maher yesterday, or part of it. And believe it or not, like we always say, even a broken clock can be right twice a day. Yeah, even he said, well, they should really be focusing on merit and not having all these racial and gender bylines that they use to decide who can run the DNC, that instead it should be whoever's effective, which, I actually agree with him there. And I didn't know this. He brought up that I guess the RNC has the same rule, that if the chair is male, the vice chair has to be female, and vice versa. So apparently we need to get the DEI out of the Republican Party the rest of the way too.
Yeah, it's been in the Republican Party for a long time as well, and then as you said, and I think it's even like that in the state of West Virginia at our state level as well in terms of that. But it's just funny, that this guy, I don't exactly understand what happened, but I'll say this. I mean, we've been talking about it on the show for a while, actually, and everybody's finally talking about it now because it's actually starting, but we've been covering it for a little bit. What happened was there was a woman of claims to be of color. I don't know. She claims that she's Native American. I don't know. I'm not saying she's not. It could be a Pocahontas situation, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. We better get a DNA test.
She ran. Yeah. So she ran for it as well as the vice chairperson, and she lost that to David Hogg. And there was another woman of color who ran as well. And so the Native American woman filed a complaint and appeal saying that David Hogg, as a white man, took the position from a woman of color and that needs to be appealed. And so You have to wonder though, with the DNC, if they thought that David Hogg was doing good for the party, they probably would leave him there. But he's been controversial since the beginning, and I don't mean controversial in a lot of the things that he believes in, but controversial. And if you remember, he used a lot of the DNC data to promote his own PAC and tried to raise money for his own PAC. And then I think that all of us over here on the conservative side are like, we're beating the drum for David Hogg. I want him to remain as the vice chair of the DNC. I think it's good for all of us if he stays there.
That's right, David. I'm rooting for you over here. Yeah, even if they do think you're a transgender. All right, well, let's jump into the good news first. Breaking: inflation rates dropped to 2.3% in April, bucking tariff concerns. Yeah, all these naysayers, these fake economists, pretend economists that they're there just to tote the narrative, lied about what the tariffs would do. Everybody knew what the real purpose was. Now it's to get trade under control. Now it's working. The market's sailed back up. Inflation's down to 2.3%. But I got a good one for you. You got a bunch of these fake news media out there, again, running stories right now going, well, actually, inflation is at 2.8%. But they arrive at that number by removing food prices, which are down, and energy prices, which are also down. And again, they're completely ignoring the fact that, and again, I've seen different numbers here, that during Biden's term, we were averaging 4.4, I guess, to about 4.7% inflation per month, with some months much higher than that. So, again, it's still better than it was during any time during Biden's presidency, but they can't help themselves but lie about anything to try to harm Trump, to harm Trump's reputation, and they're just not going to learn a lesson. That's all there is to it.
No, you're exactly correct. Really quick, I want to get some shout outs over here to Brian Dale. Thanks for the feedback on the mock, you and Thaddeus, and then Susan Powell over here as well in the X chat. Appreciate you guys. And Dan Dreyer talking about this story says that in the Rumble chat says the Democrats said it couldn't be done. Actually, they created and wanted it. That's a fact as well. So on this story, also in addition to this, not only did inflation drop to 2.3%, which it beat the expectations barely, but it still beat the expectations of 2.4%. This is the lowest annual reading since 2021. Okay, that to me is the big news here. And then I've got some other really big news kind of on this same topic that we did not bring up. We found this story I just posted a little bit ago. So President Trump has slowed down the growth of our national debt by 92%.
Yeah, that's 92%. Incredible.
That's absolutely amazing. I voted for this. Like I said, he has slowed down the growth of our national debt by 92%. Thank you, President Trump. That's amazing, actually. I can't believe there's not more headlines about that.
Yeah. And actually, we got one, but it's on the sidelines. But, if Congress would get off their lazy asses and just codify some of these executive orders and changes and remove a lot of this funding that went into the money laundering program under USAID and the Pentagon and various other places, just codify these changes, remove the bloat. Think about how much of a better path we would be on immediately. But no, these lazy loser rhinos are still sitting on their hands, can't get anything done, can't just take these executive orders, turn them into bills and pass them, shove them to the Senate, and then at the very least, you'll make the Democrats own it. You'll make them own all this spending if they block codifying it. But again, I don't know what we can do to get these rhinos to get off their hands and get something done.
Well, I mean, they're just not going to. I mean, I've seen other people now on X and even some people on other shows are finally starting to talk about that the Republicans are trying to run out the clock on President Trump. And as you guys know, I mean, people can go back and watch if you're new to the show and we've been talking about this pretty much
for months
since President Trump was inaugurated now. But that's what they were going to do is run out the clock. And that's what they're doing right now. It's sad. It's pathetic. It's unacceptable. We've got to primary these people and hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire on this. And they're not just trying to run out the clock till the midterms. They are trying to run out the clock in general on the Trump administration because they're thinking that there won't be another President Trump and they can go back to business as usual after President Trump is out of office here in 3 years now, 3.5 years at this point. So we've got a very small window of opportunity to save our country. We're very blessed to have it. And then I want to give a special shout out over here to Kristen I'm sorry. I'm not even going to try to say your last name. I am going to. Napolilo. I don't know how you say that. Kristen, welcome to the chat from California. Appreciate you for tuning in.
Ah, yes, from the People's Republic of California. We have a story for you coming up here in a minute. Surprise, Labor Department claims hundreds of thousands of jobs created by Joe Biden were fake. Well, I think we all already knew this, but now we've got confirmation as they've gone through the numbers, figured out what happened. I mean, remember, every time a jobs report came out during the Biden years, I almost said the Obama years again. I really cannot get that out of my head. But anyway, a few days later, they get revised down. So basically, the media would go along with this, knowing this happened every month. It's not like it happened 1 month and they were revised down. They would give them all these headlines about, oh, great economic growth. We're back on track. You beat the COVID slump. And then we find out 3 days later, oh, yeah, it's fake. They threw in an extra 500,000 jobs that didn't exist. So actually, we lost jobs last month. But then that gets no coverage, just the initial. I mean, that's what they always do, is they lie about things and then they bury the truth on page 15, a week later, and nobody ever hears about it. But again, this is their plan. This is their game. This is what they've always done.
Well, this is exactly right. That's what they've always done. That's who they are at the end of the day. And here's the thing: even on the jobs that they're did not just make up out of thin air to lie about. Okay, so there's two different ways here that they inflated this. Number one, they inflated by literally just making up numbers and saying that we created these jobs when they didn't, and they're having to admit that now. But in addition to that, people who were laid off from COVID or out of work from COVID and just came back to the job that was there pre-COVID, just coming back to their normal job, going back to work, they counted that as Biden created the job. Okay, that was not job creation. That was, people just going back to work, doing what they should have been doing the entire time to begin with. But they even counted that in there as well. And then on top of all of that, you have to talk about all the government jobs that were created. We're talking tens of thousands in the VA alone, and then wait time still increased within the VA, even though they added like 40,000 plus jobs in the VA. But those all counted as well as job creation. I'm sorry, anybody. I mean, literally anybody could come in as president and just and start expanding government and say that they're creating jobs. That's not creating jobs. When normal people are talking about job creation, we're talking about private sector jobs, just to be clear. But apparently the Democrats don't see it that way. No. Well, yeah,
they want the top down approach. That they think it's fine that they well, didn't they, like, during the Biden years, was it they all increased government employees, like almost doubled it, or is it a 50% increase? I can't quite remember. I'll have to look this up here in a second. But yeah, they created an astronomical number of government jobs, and then not to mention all the cronyism and other stuff that went on with the COVID loans out to their friends, out to Democrat donors, and we're now clawing that back. There's another story we're not going to get to where they just found another, I think it was $1 billion in COVID relief money that went to scammers and fraudsters, many of which were overseas. Not that that's exactly related to creating jobs here in America, but again, like, it was a scheme the whole time. We didn't have real job growth. We had government job growth, and then we had fake private sector growth during the Biden years. And that isn't to say that there wasn't some recovery from the beginning of COVID, but that's sort of, again, a broken clock can be right twice a day. It basically happens by accident. But again, if they didn't have their buddies running air cover for them in the media, then none of this would have happened. But that's also, this goes back into, why their media apparatus is broken now, that nobody trusts them. Everybody knows they're a propaganda arm for the deep state. And that's part of why we're in such a better position now, is because even the normies in the middle don't believe these mouthpieces for these globalist Democrats. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I was muted, and I was trying to do some research over here as to what you was asking about, and I found it just in time here. So this is according to the American Statesman in Austin, Texas. Just had to do a really quick search. Under Joe Biden, the federal workforce grew. So we're talking about federal workforce, just so everybody's clear here. The federal government, federal workforce grew from 2.1 million to 3 million people under Joe Biden. That's a 46% increase under.
I was close at 50%.
Yeah, I mean, that is insane, man. That is honestly. And the thing is, at the same time, wait times and everything still increased for like the VA, for instance, and all these other. I mean, it's not like it helped anything either. In addition to all of that, or it's not like he grew the military or anything like that. It was just nonsense stuff, and it was to boost their numbers. I mean, you're talking, what is it, roughly 900,000 jobs that were created in the federal government of bloating that is not needed. And so a lot of people are upset about, a lot of people on the left, I should say, are upset about President Trump cutting and Doge cutting a lot of these positions within the federal government. Well, in actuality, it's not good enough for a lot of us who have common sense, because we're not really cutting anything from pre-COVID eras. They're really at now they're cutting back to the pre-COVID era, what it was before COVID. They would have to cut they're cut 900,000 jobs just to get it to what it was before Joe Biden took office. And then from there, then any additional cuts would be what I would want to see. But I mean, if right now that we're just trying to get back to the pre-COVID spending, get back to pre-COVID, size of the government, I think that would be a really good start. And that's what we're working towards right here. And the people on the left are just losing their minds because they can't even stop to think logically for a second, because it's all they know is orange man bad.
You know what? I think I have the perfect compromise. We're going to fire all the original government employees, and we're going to just keep the 900,000 that Biden hired. And then they won't have anything to complain about. We'll have kept the job growth from Joe Biden at the federal level, and we'll just have removed all the bloat. We'll just pretend that was all the other 2.1 million prior to the Biden regime. All right, let's.
Dan Dreher just brought up a good point too, though. 89,000 of those were IRS agents. So out of the 900,000 jobs in the federal government he created, it was 10% of those 90,000 were not just IRS agents; they were armed IRS agents. If you remember, there wasn't just 90,000 IRS agents. They were going to arm them as well, so they could show up with guns blazing if need be to extract that money away from you, like the Gestapo over here. I mean, it's unbelievable, honestly, that we lived through that era and have lived to tell the tale, to be honest with you.
Well, I think we need to take those people, teach them Spanish, and make them part of ICE so they can help conduct mass deportations. Now, I know a lot of these people they hired for the IRS are the cry closet types. So they'll probably eliminate themselves the minute that we reassign them to ICE. But I think that's the way to go, because Kristi Noem's going to need some help. DHS sets sights on California for allegedly providing federal benefits to illegal aliens. And if this is the case, we need to see some arrests in addition to clawing back this money. I mean, California has already had to take out a loan for what was it, $44.5 billion? It might be $45.4 billion. Doesn't matter. Potato. Out in California just to cover state Medicaid benefits for illegal aliens. So I have no doubt they're siphoning off federal funds to do the same. And it's amazing, California could actually balance its budget if it weren't for all the benefits they're providing to invaders.
No, that's exactly right. That's the sad part is they're doing all this, and it's I'm sorry, I was trying to do some research on that as well, because I posted about that yesterday. I couldn't remember exactly what it was. I didn't want to say some numbers and be wrong, but yeah, I mean, look, the Trump administration is investigating the entire state of California at this point, for funding these illegals. And what it was doing, it was something to do with Social Security. They were something to do with Social Security and those sorts of benefits. That's what I was trying to
like putting them on disability
and fund that. Yeah, and so the reason this is so big is not only are they investigating California for doing this, but if they prove this to be true, which I think they will,
probably, yeah,
this would crush the narrative of the left of illegals were not receiving Social Security benefits, I guess is what I'm getting at. So it has potential to be a much bigger story than just California. This was probably just the beginning of this entire story, if you will, once they really get into this and start looking into that. So I mean, it's pretty wild. It needs to be investigated. Yes, here it is. So the DHS is launching an investigation into the state of California for providing criminal aliens with federal benefits. And this is it's pretty wild, man, honestly, that they're doing this, and they were so blatant about it as well. And giving these federal benefits to these illegals. So this is, I would argue, once again, especially if they're continuing to do this, that this is aiding and abetting foreign invaders of our country.
Yeah.
And that is treason. That's exactly what this is treason. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, just wait. The media will try to run air cover for this, and by this time next week, it'll be racist that we even noticed this was going on. I'm sure that'll be what they'll have to resort to for the defense. All right, guys, we got to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our sponsor, or the best way to support our program and all the programs here on X America News is by supporting our sponsors. Right now, you can go to mypillow or mystore.com, use code INSURRECTION to get the deepest discounts on all the products they have to offer. Again, Mike Lindell really does need your support right now. The media is going after him again ever since he threatened to run against Tampon Tim in Minnesota, and his employees in Minnesota and elsewhere, and all the small businesses that make up my store really do need your support. That creates jobs in America. It's a way to keep your dollars here at home, and a way to support us, support Mike Lindell, and support America. So again, go to my store or mypillow.com and use code INSURRECTION. All
Mike,
right.
I got some really quick information on that. I'll run through it super quick just so everybody is aware of the
you're
story we
fine.
just covered. Because I think this is a huge story that I don't think is getting enough attention right now, to be honest with you. So this is through a program called CAPI, which is stands for Cash Assistance Program for Immigrants. Yep. It's a California-funded program, and it provides monthly cash assistance to certain legal immigrants. It's for legal immigrants who are not yet U.S. citizens, but they're here legally, and they're ineligible for federal Social Security for whatever reason. So in order to qualify for this program in California, which I think is crazy that it even exists regardless. But anyways, somebody has to be 65 or older, or they have to be blind or disabled. They have to be legally residing in the U.S., and then they have to be ineligible for Social Security due to immigration rules. So this is like California has basically said, we're going to steal money, and they're admitting this part. Okay, there's no debating this. They were basically saying we're going to steal money from residents here in the state of California, and probably use some other funds that comes in federally, and we're going to create this fund that people who are here legally but not yet U.S. citizens, and we're going to basically give them their own version of SSI, Social Security, to help them out. So that is the claim here. So the claim, though, is that DHS has issued subpoenas to people in the state of California because DHS believes that some recipients of this cash program may have been illegals and possibly received federal benefits that they were not entitled to as well. So that's the gist of it. We'll watch this story as it continues to developing. But we all know that they've been receiving these benefits, and Dan Jarrett brings it up too, Medicaid as well. They absolutely have been at some point, and we're going to have to investigate this, hold them accountable, and then, like you said, see some arrests for this as well. So a shout out to Smash over here in the X chat. And then Kristen says, I hope Newsom becomes the new Alcatraz's first guest. That would be awesome.
Oh yeah. I wonder if how he'll smuggle in all his hair grease. But yeah, I mean, I think we've all known this is going on for a long time, that many of these states that are essentially in rebellion, like California, Colorado, Washington, the DC, New York, Chicago, that they've been doing this. They've been reallocating federal funds to pay for illegal aliens. And again, like even this program for legal aliens in California, I mean, I guess if they're actually funding it with state dollars, then technically there's not much the rest of us can do about it. They can shovel their own money in a blast furnace if they want to, but if they're using federal dollars to do it, that should be illegal. But like I've said numerous times on here before, even if you're a legal alien coming into the U.S., like I don't think any welfare benefits or anything else should be available to you, with the exception of like emergency disaster relief. You know, if FEMA's got to put up a shelter because a hurricane just hit, then you should be able to go in there just like everybody else. You know, you didn't cause the hurricane, but otherwise, no federal funds of any kind for aliens, legal or otherwise, unless it's funding your deportation, your flight out of the country. I guess we're going to have to pay for that. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this here too, because we got more on the illegal immigration front. Breaking: protesters block access to ICE detention center, refuse to leave until arrested. Well, guess what happened? Leftist protesters arrested after a violent clash with law enforcement at Newark ICE facility. And you're already seeing all the gnashing of teeth and wailing out there, crying that this is unjust, that these are protesters, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I mean, I think they just need to hurry up and arrest these other Democrats that were out there violently attacking ICE employees and law enforcement at the detention center over the weekend. This is a good step. These are arrests. These guys were blocking emergency vehicles and other things. I'm glad they went to jail. They should be charged to the fullest extent of the law, but we really need to arrest these Democrats as well.
Look, obviously I support the Constitution, the freedom of speech, the right to protest, all those sorts of things, obviously. But you do not have the right to block a federal facilities such as that. You don't have the right to block emergency vehicles coming in and out. You do not have the right to storm a federal, detention center. Like this is crazy the way that they try to conflate these things. So like they want to say, all the Trump supporters who were rounded up after, January 6th, or abortion clinics, praying at abortion clinics, or speaking out at school board meetings, that is bad. You don't have the constitutional right to do that. But you do have the constitutional right to storm a facility to try to help free foreign terrorist invaders of our country. That's how crazy these people really are at the end of the day. It's absolutely nuts. And so there's really not much hope for these people. The only thing that needs to happen is, the police allowed those people to basically sit there all day long. They finally made a few arrests at the end of the day, but it's like, arrest them at the beginning of the day when they start this junk. And look, for the record, if they want to stand beside of the gate, not in anybody's way, and they want to hold signs and they want to scream and cuss out the federal agents, I support their freedom to do that. I support their freedom to do that 100%. They could line that entire sidewalk. They could pitch a tent there and stay on that sidewalk and protest. I don't care. I support their freedom to do that. I think they're retarded. I think they're morons, but I support their freedom to do that 100%. My issue is where they're blocking the facility from being able to conduct normal business and blocking emergency vehicles and pushing and shoving on federal agents, those sorts of things. That is not the First Amendment. The First Amendment is standing to the side over there, allowing stuff to still freely move in and out of the facility, and scream and cuss all you want to, hold signs, say whatever you want. I don't care if they mother F every single person coming in and out of there. I don't care. They have the freedom to do that, but there's a fine line there, and they are definitely on the wrong side of that, and nothing's being done about it, and that's why they continue to do it.
Exactly. I mean, the minute they started blocking the gate, they should have been given one warning. Hey, get your ass out of the way, let our vehicles in and out. If they don't comply immediately, you throw them to the ground, you handcuff them, and then you charge them, every single one of them. I wouldn't let anybody get away. Don't make an example. Make an example out of all of them, not just one of them. It's got to be fair. We're a democracy after all, and everybody decided to be there on their own, which means everybody can suffer the consequences on their own. Oh man, I should have grabbed this. Did you see this video of these climate protesters in Germany that glued themselves to the road, and then somebody that was sick and tired of their nonsense had bear mace in their car and just sprayed them all down, so now they're stuck to the road and covered in bear mace. Like, these people are lucky.
Can't even rub their eyes.
Exactly.
Their hands are, that's awesome. Not all heroes wear capes.
Exactly. Yeah, these people are lucky I'm not running the show, or that's the kind of thing that would happen. We'd glue them down in place first and then mace them. Then put him in straitjackets and give him an enema. Make his life as miserable as possible. All right, well, let's move on to some other ridiculous news. Trump shames media for ignoring genocide of white farmers. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. And they talk about it nonstop. If these were black farmers being hunted down in South Africa and murdered by the government, that would be the only thing we saw in the news. But MSNBC's Yamachi Alcindor, whatever, whines after 59 white South African refugees waving American flags arrive in U.S. And it gets even worse. Oh, yeah, you remember this retard? Episcopal Church ends refugee partnership with U.S. government, cites moral opposition to resettling persecuted white Afrikaners from South Africa. So they want to help immigrants at the Episcopal Church, just not the white ones. And again, they want to facilitate an invasion. They want to break down social cohesion in the United States, and they want to create more victim groups here and more pockets of resistance. It isn't about helping anybody. It's about using illegal immigrants as a tool to further divide the United States and to coalesce power around the globalist Democrats.
Oh man, where to start on this? So first of all, I'm gonna read a quote from Scott Jennings. He said on CNN because I think it's very concise and sums it up. So Scott Jennings on CNN speaking to a black Biden-Harris senior staffer who was opposed to these white farmers coming to America. Scott Jennings says the same people who had no problem with letting in 20 million illegal immigrants, gang members included, are suddenly outraged about a small group of white South African refugees. Spare me. And that's exactly how I feel about this as well. And then in terms of the so-called church and the left and all this, I guess some of their biggest issues are not only the color of their skin, but these people are they're not covered in tattoos. They don't have criminal records. They are just normal people. This is literally what asylum was created for. Honestly, these white farmers who are coming here, fleeing the persecution in South Africa, and coming here in small numbers, mind you, and coming here the legal way, like a properly applying for asylum and being brought in the way that they've been brought in. That is what asylum is supposed to be for. I support this, and it's not because they're white. If it was black farmers who are being persecuted, they're the exact same way. I would support those people coming here to this country in small numbers, seeking asylum the way that these families have. These people are coming in truly as families with entire families, family structures. You got children and such there as well. This is awesome. I think it's really cool, and I think it really kind of shows the differences in what the left views as asylum versus what conservatives view as asylum.
Yeah, well, that really highlights that because, what the left views as asylum is outright invasion. It's no checking on who's coming in, just handing them cash and not. I mean, this is the other thing. Like, these farmers are going to get jobs here. They're going to probably, a lot of them. I read a few different pieces about this yesterday. Like, a lot of these people are leaving because of the persecution and because of their lives being threatened over there. But a lot of them still have like financial assets. They're going to be able to buy new farms here in the U.S. and go right back to being productive members of society. Only, here they're not going to have to worry about gangs coming in, killing them, and the government doing nothing or refusing to protect them. I mean, it's really a horrible story.
That's a great point. They're not coming here to be a drain on our country and a leech on our country because they, like you said, they have their own assets, their own stuff, and they have skills that are needed. We're trying to bring back more farming and produce more of that stuff here in America. So you got these people with these skills and such as well who's coming here to bring that to America. This I don't know how people could be opposed to what's going on. If you just went to a normal person on the street and didn't mention any colors and didn't mention the country because too many people know about it now, but you said, hey, there's a country out there and there's these farmers who have had this land for years, and the country is now attempting to rip that away from them. They're the minority group in their country, and they are having this land and stuff ripped away from them based on nothing other than the color of their skin. They're being killed, they're being slaughtered. And those people want to come here, bring their own money, purchase land here, and start farming and build a life here. Would you support that? I bet you if you phrase it in the proper way like that without giving any of the exact details, I bet you the majority of people would support bringing those people here to this country. But when you start they start understanding the race involved and the politics involved, now they're opposed to it, not because of the moral or because it's justified. It's because they just, orange man bad, and how dare these white people come to this country.
Well, honestly, I think even if you included the details and you talked to the average person on the street rather than your average Democrat voter, that you would get the exact same response. Like, yeah, of course we should let these people in. They're being persecuted and killed by their government. There's a genocide going on in South Africa. I think, your average person on the street, black, white, yellow, red, whatever, they're going to all say the same thing. Like, yes, these are the kind of people we want. They're going to be productive here. It's just your lunatic Democrat fringe base that, again, sees everything through the lens, the prism of race and religion. And that's the only people that are going to support this. Let me go ahead and pull this next story too, though. Trump administration to announce official end to temporary protected status for Afghans. Now, this is a great story. It's over on Jihad Watch. You guys should read through this. I've also read through that apparently 10,000 of them are already being targeted for removal because they have direct ties to terrorist organizations or the Taliban. So, again, Biden let in close to 100,000 Afghan refugees. We've already paid the price for it. You've had numerous arrested for child molestation, all kinds of other horrible things, and ties to terrorism. So yeah, it's again time to drain out this poison, remove them from our country. Now, the ones that are not a threat that really did help our military, like translators, people like that, you know what, we can't send them back or they're going to be executed. But anybody that is even the slightest threat to the United States or anybody that otherwise doesn't qualify for asylum to be here, send them on back. They can go make Afghanistan great again.
Look, for the record, those who were loyal to us and helped our soldiers over there and put their lives at risk, I want them to be able to stay here. I don't want them to be deported. I think that they've earned the right to be here and in America. And so, you know, those people excluded. I'm not going, mentioning them when I say this, but all of those people should be kicked out of our country. It's bullcrap that they were even brought here to begin with. We cannot allow this to continue. America is and never will be a Muslim country. We have to fight back about this. There's not enough people who's willing to speak out against it because they are afraid of being labeled as a racist or whatever. I don't really care. We've got to stand up. I was actually having a conversation with my wife this morning. I said, do you realize that if things keep going the way that they're going, we will probably end up watching our children and grandchildren having to fight some sort of holy war here in our own country? That's what's coming right now. But we're not going to have a choice. There's no coexisting with Islam. There's just not. You either submit or you fight back. That's the only options when it comes to that. So we'll give a couple quick shout outs though. We've got David over here in the X chat. He is from England, Great Britain, looks like. And then we've got Woodrow over here, and we've got Jen over here as well. Appreciate you guys more than you ever know, and just keep it coming. I love the chats. You guys help shape the show more than you imagine.
That isn't David Bannerman from the UK, is it?
David Green.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, sorry, David. I'm friends with one of your former MPs over there. I thought maybe he hopped in the chat because we've met him in Belgium and Romania a few times. Good guy. And actually, I'm going to try to get him booked on our show again here coming up soon. When we get up to the story, you'll see why. Had this yesterday too. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. celebrates Trump's move to slash medicine prices. I never thought this would happen in my lifetime. And I'm going to play the video of this real quick for you guys. So let's go ahead and roll
Thank you,
this.
Mr. President. This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns
I wonder if RFK Jr. ever thought that Trump would be the one to answer his prayers, essentially, that move all these things forward that he'd been fighting for within the Democrat Party for most of his life. And then the one to finally accomplish these goals is President Trump. And I'll give this. RFK Jr. has really, I think, done a great job at HHS. I know a few people some people are still upset about the measles thing, but otherwise, he's done a great job with most of the agenda items he's pushed forward with a lot of these investigations and other things that he started. And I think he's already laid out a framework for immense positive change within the pharmaceutical industry and within the federal government.
Dude, I'm so pumped about RFK Jr. I think he's doing a fantastic job. He's doing so much work that people just aren't even paying attention to because you can't keep up with everything. I get that. But I mean, he just today, I'm trying to find it right now. Just today, he announced something else as well with baby formula. I mean, so a lot of chemicals and stuff in there. So he just launched the first comprehensive review of infant formula since 1998. So kind of think about that. 1998, that we're talking, what, 27, 28 years ago now, since there was the last time there was a comprehensive review of infant formula in this country. And he goes on to say, every child has a fundamental right to a healthy start. We're giving parents the truth and the tools to make that happen. And then this whole thing is going to bring radical transparency to ingredients in infant formula so that parents can make informed decisions about what they are, going to be purchasing for their newborn baby on all of this. This is incredible. And look, as you said, some people are not happy about this or happy about that. I get that. There will never in our lifetime be somebody who is in this position who will be willing to make the radical changes that RFK Jr. is willing to make. There's just not. I mean, we are so lucky to have this man in there right now. I'm so thankful. It's really cool to think that, this man was willing to swallow his pride, to drop out of that race. That had to be hard to do, and to accept that reality that you can't win, and say, I don't care. I want to put the betterment of the country and the betterment of my movement above that. And then he was willing to put his trust in President Trump on a handshake deal. President Trump could have easily just used him for, I'll make you the HHS secretary, and then not did it and put him in some low-level staffer position there and say, oh, I did what I was supposed to do. No, he didn't. And so it's just really cool to see how this whole thing came together. And God works in mysterious ways. And I remember when he first dropped out and accepted that position, even during the campaign before Trump had won, he said that he had always prayed for years that he would be able to be in that position. That was the only reason he even ran for president, was because he wanted to do these sorts of things. And that's why President Trump reached out, offered the olive branch, and said, hey, you can do those things. Come join our team. And that's what he did. And I think it's absolutely amazing to see this coming full circle now. And I'm here for it. I loved watching RFK Jr. And one other thing he said in that news clip that you played, Mike, is he had mentioned that Big Pharma had donated $100 million to President Trump's campaign, and they still could not buy his integrity. It's absolutely amazing. And he even mentioned that two of his kids were Bernie type of supporters. And when he called them to tell them the news before, it hit the media and everything, to tell them the news that Trump was going to do this, he said that they were literally crying. That's how much it meant to them that this is happening. So I mean, this is huge, man. This is awesome. I'm so thankful for the Maha movement, and it's probably the thing I'm most excited about in terms of long-term benefits of the Trump administration.
Yeah, well, and there is another side of this coin too, politically, is that this has brought over a huge number of these granola eating kind of libertarian leaning hippies that were still supporting the DNC, but the ones that really do want healthy food and want to get chemicals out of this stuff and want real transparency, that this has brought over a lot of new voters to the GOP base. But I shouldn't say that. They're really more attached to the America First, the MAGA, the Maha movement, and President Trump. And I think that's what another message the rest of these Republicans need to get is Trump has earned these votes. They haven't. And I don't think they'll be there for the next Republican leader unless they are, again, on board on these kind of changes that America needs and America wants. And we're going to get, after our break, we're going to get to John Thune and that little bastard. All right, guys, we got to take another quick break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, for at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program, all the programs on Ex American News, is by supporting our sponsors. Go to lutfstudio.com. That's Live Up to Freedom studio.com. Buy yourself a unique, one-of-a-kind, handmade piece of art from Annie Cyrus. And remember, she also does custom orders. You can go to the website, click on the form, or click on the email, send her a message. If you want one of these pieces in custom colors or whatever, she'll take care of that. She'll give you a price and get back to you. And again, we need to support the people that make all this possible. She does a lot of work behind the scenes, producing numerous shows here on Ex American News. And you can check out her show, which I think she's going to be moving what days it's on next week. But right now it's on every Tuesday and Thursday here on Ex American News. I think next week she's moving to Thursday and Friday, but I guess let me confirm that. Again, it's lutfstudio.com. Go there today. All right, John Thune. The rest of these weasels in Washington. Report. Senator Thune signals opposition to codifying Trump's prescription drug pricing order. Calls it fairly controversial if passed by Congress. Well, yeah, this is because they're all funded by Big Pharma. This is where their money comes from. They know where their bread's buttered. And they know in order to keep getting these donations that Big Pharma needs to keep ripping off Americans. Because, again, just a quick refresh of what he and RFK Jr. were discussing is Trump signed an executive order demanding that these pharmaceutical companies give us the same preferred pricing they're giving all these communists over in Europe, that they're paying anywhere from around 40 to almost 80% less than we are for the same drugs. And we should be getting the same pricing. We don't need to fund them. We don't need to fund their bonus checks or their research. It shouldn't be purely on our backs. We need flat pricing. So if that means Europe's pricing needs to come up and ours comes down to meet in the middle, that's fine too. At least we're all sharing the same burden. We're all paying the same price for the same drugs.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to Obliviously over here in the Getter chat. Then I want to give a shout out to John Montana and Jen and Tess over here in the X chat. John Montana had said that what we have with this entire administration is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We better not squander it. And I think that's important with the current story we're talking about, because that's exactly what is happening from our Republicans in the Senate and the House. Is they are squandering this. Actually, they're not squandering it, because squandering it would mean that they were actually in favor of the movement, and it was accidentally being
wasted.
Lost. The moment was accidentally being wasted. This is not squandering, I guess. This is sabotage taking place right now. The only reason, now think about this, Republicans have control of the Senate and the House, actually have a decent margin in the Senate right now. The only reason that this could be considered controversial is if we don't have enough, if the Republicans do not agree with making this official law. So that is what they're saying, is that we as Republicans in the Senate do not agree with doing this, and they don't want to bring it to a vote because they don't want to be officially on the record as being opposed to this. So they'll just not bring it up for a vote, and then once again run out the clock on President Trump. That's what they're doing here. But this is unacceptable. And here's the other thing. Senator John Thune, I did some research last night. So since 1997, Senator John Thune has accepted $1.2 million in campaign contributions from Big Pharma. Now you know why he says it's controversial to bring it up to a vote to make the lowering of the prescription drug costs as official law. Now you know why.
Permanent.
Because that is why it's controversial. It's controversial to him via his donors. That is pathetic. That's sad. And just another reason that we need term limits. The fact the guy's been there since 1997 is reason enough. But yeah, that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and again, this is the perfect opportunity. Why not make the left own this? Make Chuck Schumer argue against cutting medical costs for prescription drugs for all Americans. And again, they have no sense of strategy, no sense of they don't want to beat the Democrats into submission like Trump and the rest of us do. If this isn't going to go through, then make the Democrats own it. Make them filibuster this, block it, and then make that your talking point of why we need to take the Senate.
But that's why, though, Mike. It's not going to go through because of the Democrats. It's not going to go through because of the Republicans. That's why they don't want to do that. Yeah, there's a lot of Democrats who would vote for this and support this. It would pass. If they bring it to a vote, it would pass because for every Republican who's opposed to it, there's a Democrat who would. I hate a lot of these people in the Democrat Party, but there's a Democrat congressman from California. I don't remember his name. I can look it up in a second. Who already came out and said that he would love to co-sponsor this in the House and make it a bipartisan bill and to get it out there and support it. So it would pass. But the leadership within the Republican Party don't want to make their donors mad, so they're just not going to bring it to a vote.
Well, see, I think it would pass the House, and I do think there would be Democrats that come on board, but I think in the Senate, other than maybe Fetterman, the rest of them would lock arms, filibuster it, and then not allow it to come for a vote, the rest of the Democrats, because they're so blinded by Trump derangement syndrome that even something like this, they would come up with an excuse. They would tell Americans somehow, bringing down drug prices is bad for them, just like they're trying to convince them higher taxes are good for them, or continuing to pay taxes on tips is somehow good for Americans. But I think if they got it through the House and to the Senate, and Republicans weren't the ones that balked at it, if they all got in line and supported the bill, I think Schumer would still sabotage this. That there's no chance that they wouldn't, because they couldn't give Trump a big victory like this that would immediately have a positive impact for everybody in America, including all these blue-haired moonbats that are taking all these pills for their mental disorders.
Chuck Schumer would do whatever AOC told him to do because he's scared to death that she's going to primary him. I mean, that's the reality of the situation with Chuck Schumer right now. He's AOC's little he's her bitch. Puppet. Yeah, he's going to do whatever she says to do because he's terrified of her on that. And so and yes, just for clarification, Josh over here, shout out to Josh Green in the X chat. Josh says, aren't plenty of Republicans owned by Big Pharma too? That's exactly what I'm referring to right now.
Yeah.
Are the Republicans? I'm not even mentioning the Democrats in this conversation because they're not in control. The Republicans control the House and the Senate. In theory, if Republicans were on board with this, it would pass without a single Democrat vote. So it doesn't matter to me what the Democrats' view is on this. I know, like I said, I know that a handful of them would vote for it anyway, so it'd get passed. And then Jen says Thune is a rhino. That's exactly
no kidding.
Correct on this. Yeah, he's a king rhino. And it's very frustrating to say the least. These people oppose President Trump. They're quietly never Trumpers, and
yes.
They are shocked. A lot of these Republicans in the Senate and the House who are quietly trying to sabotage President Trump behind the scenes, they did not ever expect to have to deal with President Trump again. They thought he was finished after January 6th. They thought he was finished after all of the arrests. They thought he was finished after all of the charges that were brought against him and trying to throw him in prison for 1,000+ years. They'd never in their wildest dreams imagined that he'd be back in his position. It wasn't until they had to accept the reality that he was going to be the Republican nominee that they even thought that even then they didn't think he was going to win. I really don't believe that they thought that. And so they did not really have much of a game plan moving forward in terms of how to combat President Trump. So right now what we are seeing is they are figuring things out as they go along, because they never had a plan for this. They never expected to have to deal with President Trump again. And that is why they're just right now running out the clock, because they don't have any other options, any other plans to do that other than wait out President Trump and try to get back to business as usual, where they push their globalist, warmongering, neocon agenda across the world, basically, and across the country. That's what they're wanting to do.
Yeah, well, we need to light up Thune's phone and the rest of these rhinos in the Senate especially, and get them in line with this. I don't care about your donations or who's funding your trips to wherever. And again, if they get behind this, the American people will support them. This is good for everybody. But these losers have more loyalty, more allegiance to Big Pharma and the other lobbyists in D.C. than they do to the American people, and they just prove it over and over again. Here it is. House Republicans released Trump-approved tax plan. The one big, beautiful bill. Tips, overtime, and family paychecks to get huge boost. Again, I think this is great news. I do expect this to sail through the House, make it to the Senate, and then we'll probably just see filibusters led by Chuck Schumer and others. Again, this would be good for all Americans. Eliminating these taxes on Social Security, on tips, on other things, is going to be good for some of the Americans that struggle the most. And the rest of this, reducing taxes, that's going to supercharge the economy, especially if we're able to, at some point, eliminate taxes for all Americans earning somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 per year. Because, again, they floated numbers all over the place. But this is what we need. You want to supercharge the economy and really put America back on top of the world? We need to solve our tax problem.
There's one issue that I have with this bill that nobody's been mentioning so far that I've seen. I've even searched through the media and everything else. They left out no taxes on Social Security.
Oh, they did.
That's not in this bill, and that is an issue for me. I believe that with the rampant inflation that we've had, that our senior citizens need to become a priority on this. I want to see it all included, obviously, but these are people who have. When they set a budget to retire on, they said, we're going to retire on this much and we're going to be able to make it. And then nobody could have ever thought in their wildest dreams that we would see the rampant inflation that we did in just a short period of time. I mean, we saw probably 2 decades worth of inflation in the span of 4 years. So nobody could plan for that. And these people are not capable of going out and getting another job. They're not capable of picking up a secondary job. I mean, and they've got, medical costs, all these other issues going on. And so I'm hoping that, I don't know why it wasn't included in this original version of this. I hope that it's amended and thrown in there. These are people who worked their entire lives. They built this country, quite frankly, and were taxed beyond our wildest dreams their entire lifetime, had that money stolen from them out of their paychecks to throw into Social Security to where it prevented them from investing it into something else. And now we're going to turn around and tax them on that as well when they're in their older years and needing that money to survive off of. I think this is absolutely pathetic. I think that we need that has to be part of this bill is the no tax on Social Security. We need to start making noise on this and make them include that in there. And I don't care what else they have to cut in the process to make up for that. I don't care. I really don't. They need to include this in there for senior citizens.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I assumed it was in there since we talked about it over and over again. So as Trump and even Johnson's mentioned it, that would help America's seniors out. But yeah, we've got to end this mentality of just reaching into everybody's pockets, stealing their income to fund these lunatic programs at the federal government that they have no business, no constitutional authority to be funding to begin with. We need to get government under control, and that will really unleash the engine behind the American economy and move us forward to the rightful positions at the top, leading the world once again. Let's go ahead and pull this, try to sneak one more story in before we run out of time, because this is ridiculous. Library of Congress staffers block Trump officials' access, refuse to recognize Todd Blanche as acting head librarian. Again, this is insane. Why have we not fired every single one of these staffers? I don't care how long they've been there, but this is clearly an act of insubordination. It is an open insurrection within the Library of Congress. Fire all of them. I don't care how long they've been there, and then put in people that will actually do their job regardless of party or politics.
Sorry, I was over here researching this other bill. I don't know a whole lot about that story that you just threw there, but and I was just being honest, vaguely listening because I was reading this because I wanted to make sure I was very clear on the Social Security thing. It is not included in the bill. And what they've done instead, this is the dumbest thing ever, that for the tax years 2025 through 2028, so it's not even for forever, okay? Instead of eliminating the taxes on Social Security, our Republicans in Congress thought it was a good idea that for the next 4 years, we will add an additional $4,000 deduction on Social Security wages. Like what? What? It makes no sense. And it's got a sunset clause. You know why? Because in 2028 is an election year, and they're going to use it to campaign and say, if you senior citizens want to keep the deduction that we've given you, then you have to vote for Republicans again because we're the ones that did it. That is. I'm sorry. I'm just now reading this part. Quite frankly, I'm pissed off right now that they would use our senior citizens as a political volleyball, if you will, a political, thing on a treat on the end of a stick to go over here, and that's why it's going through 2028 because that's an election year. These people are scumbags, man. I'm telling you.
Oh, sorry. I know. Well, Republicans, this is why you're hated and Trump's loved, because you little weasels pull this kind of garbage. I'm sure they probably thought that was a brilliant idea. Oh, yeah, well, we'll throw this in there. We'll throw in a tax deduction, and then we'll hold them hostage for it next time there's an election. Ha ha, brilliant. And then everyone high fives. What a bunch of... Again, that's why we need more people in Congress that are actually fighting to make America great again, fighting for this America First agenda. And we need to end the rest of these rhinos' careers right now. Coming up, there's going to be an opportunity to do it, especially while the Democrats are still in total disarray and losing more and more support all the time. Guys, we are unfortunately out of time, but thank you for joining us today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to continue to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. We'll be back tomorrow.